So you want to open your Bibles to Revelations chapter 8. Follow along in our not so positive study. It gets worse and worse as we continue our study here in Revelations. So, yeah, we're thankful that the church doesn't have to go through that. I read somewhere that somebody said, if you believe that's the case. And I'm like, well, regardless of what you believe, it's either one way or the other. Okay, so first, a little review. Let's see if it's showing up. Not showing up. Let's get this thing. Okay. As we went through this last week, let's go through it real quick again. So the first seal, the white horse went out with a crown that was given to him. He had a bow. He went forth conquering and to conquer. Second seal was the red horse. It says power was given to him to take peace from the earth. And so that men should kill one another, and a great sword was given him. So red horse, that fits because of a lot of bloodshed. The black horse under the third seal, famine. Day's wage for a loaf of bread, a penny, it says. But it's still limited. It says, hurt not the oil or the wine. And then the fourth seal is broken, and the pale horse goes out. And death is riding him, and hell is following him. And he had power over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword and with hunger and with death and the beasts of the earth. Fourth part of the earth is, he has power over that fourth part. And I don't think it's saying he's going to kill everybody, but he has power to try. And no doubt he kills a lot of people. But that's my opinion. And then the fifth seal, souls under the altar crying for vengeance. Seems to be a break in the how would you say, there's a break here. 4 seals and 4 horsemen, but it doesn't mention horses anymore. Souls under the altar. 6th seal, men see God on the throne. You know, they're crying for the rocks and the mountains to fall on them and to cover them from the face, or from the one sitting on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. And, you know, the sun is dark, moon blood, stars fall, and there's a big earthquake, and the day of wrath is come, which tells me that the 6th seal takes you all the way to the second coming, or at least right up to the second coming. I mean, notice it doesn't say that they see him on the white horse at this point. They see God on the throne. Remember chapter 5? There was God on the throne, and he had a book in his right hand, and the Lamb was the only one that had the right to take that book. So here again we see somebody on the throne. They're saying, hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and it appears that is God. And then they also say, hide us from the wrath of the Lamb, which probably right after is on the horse coming with his army. And then it says that John saw the 7th seal opened. And yet, you're like, how can that come after? I think that the 7th seal begins in the 5th seal. The 7th seal events begin under the 5th seal, which tells me that the 7th seal overlap the 5th and the 6th seal. That's the only way I can I mean, it still doesn't quite make sense, but that's the best way I can explain it. And I'll show you the scripture. But that the trumpets come out of the 7th seal. The 7 trumpets are in the 7th seal. And when you look at the events that happen under the 7 trumpets, you can tell that they begin probably in the 5th seal. Something like that, or even maybe before, but somewhere in there. So this is the best illustration I could come up with, that the seventh seal overlaps the sixth seal, the fifth seal, and the trumpets overlap that period of time. So you have the first trumpet, third part of the trees burn up and all grass is burned up. The second trumpet, this burning mountain comes flying down out of heaven, and it makes impact in the sea, and the third part of the creatures are killed. Sea is turned into blood, at least the third part of it, and third of the ships are destroyed. So we have a food supply chain issue going on here if their ships are not able to provide cargo. So the third trumpet, third of the rivers, a lot of thirds going on here. Trumpet number one, third of the trees, but all grass. But then the second trumpet, third of the sea, and creatures and ships destroyed. Third trumpet is the third of the rivers and the fountains are contaminated by this wormwood, which is probably an asteroid. And then the fourth trumpet is the third of the sun and the moon and the stars are smitten. And that's as far as we'll go in the text today. But then if you keep going in chapter 9, you'll read about the fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpet, or fifth and sixth trumpet. The seventh trumpet doesn't show up until chapter 11. But 5 and 6, you have locusts come up out of the bottomless pit, and they have the power to hurt people 5 months. Sixth trumpet is the third of men are killed by an army of 200 million, or 200,000. I would take that to being 200 million, these strange creatures that will be unleashed. And then the seventh trumpet is all the way at the end again, because it says the kingdoms are become the kingdoms of our God, the kingdoms of this world, which coincides or lines up with men seeing God on the throne, okay, the second coming. So the seventh trumpet is under or lines up with the sixth seal, which is the seventh seal, somehow. Okay? Best I could explain that. All right. Revelation 8, verse 1, it says, "And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour." Now remember, we just went through chapter 7. What was 7 all about? 7 was the sixth seal period from the perspective of the 144,000. So there was a pause in the breaking of the seals between 6 and 7, and that was the sealing of the 144,000. And now that he's covered that, now he's going to talk about the seventh seal. And all that he mentions that happens at the seventh seal, well, right here is the first thing that he mentions. There was silence. Okay? But then he doesn't say, and then this calamity happened or this calamity. He says, about 3 or 4 verses down, that the trumpets were blown. So the trumpets are in the seventh seal. But so let's look at this idea about silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. Now, can you imagine if I was just suddenly silent and you all were silent, a half hour? It'd be kind of, number one, it'd be kind of hard to do. Number two, I think it would be kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. You know, like this is, but if there was a tremendous event about to take place, maybe you could do it. Right? I suspect there was such an awe-inspiring event that they could see is about to take place, that everybody stopped singing. The beasts were probably quit their crying, holy and holy. No harps going. Everybody's silent. All heaven goes silent, which tells you normally heaven is got activity and a lot of sounds going on. People are talking, people are visiting. There's worship services every so often. The beasts are crying all the time, day and night. But all of a sudden, for half an hour, maybe for the first time ever, I don't know, text about judgment and silence. Psalm 28 verse 1 says, "Unto thee will I cry." Now what were they doing under the fifth altar? They were crying for vengeance. And we're going to see an angel offering prayers just a couple verses later here, or the next verse or so, here in Revelation chapter 8, right after the silence. So unto thee will I cry, O Lord my rock, be not silent to me, lest, if thou be silent to me, I become like them that go down into the pit. So I thought maybe this silence in heaven is actually playing out literally the way men feel on the earth when they pray. Feels like God is silent and doesn't answer for a long time. And it's actually only half an hour in God's experience, in heaven's time. So silence in heaven before destroying the wicked and answering the prayers. Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry unto thee, when I lift up my hands toward thy holy oracle. That's the holiest place of the temple. That's significant because it's going to mention an altar in Revelation 8. Draw me not away with the wicked, with the workers of iniquity, which speak peace to their neighbors, but mischief is in their hearts. Isn't that significant how the Arabs are saying they want peace, but they don't really want peace at all. Give them according to their deeds, and according to the wickedness of their endeavors. Give them after the work of their hands. Render them. I thought that fit very well. The souls under the altar are crying for vengeance. What is vengeance? Give them according to their deeds. They killed us. 23. This thou hast seen, O Lord. Keep not silence. O Lord, be not far from me. Stir up thyself and awake to my judgment, even unto my cause, my God and my Lord. Judge me, O Lord my God, according to thy righteousness, and let them not rejoice over me. Think about Israel versus the other side. Let them not say in their hearts, so would we have it. Let them not say, we have swallowed him up. Let them be ashamed and brought to confusion together that rejoice at mine hurt. Think about the souls under the altar in this context. Let them be ashamed and be brought to confusion. Right now, looks like it's the wrong way. The wicked won, and here we are, killed, and we're up here in heaven, but we're crying for vengeance. Let them be lying in the street. They won't bury them for 3.5 days, and the enemies are rejoicing and sending gifts to everybody. They're that happy that they're going out to Walmart and buying gifts for Amazon and sending it to everybody because these 2 men got killed. That's how happy and how rejoicing. So, but then it flips, because they're up in heaven praying. Let them be ashamed and brought to confusion together that rejoice. And that is what heaven is told to do in Revelation 18:20. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. So the day is coming where the great whore, Babylon, will be judged and burned up, and the wicked will be judged. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he has judged the great whore which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. Back another idea about waiting. Can we wait for half an hour? People do wicked things to you, and then you cry to the Lord. Now, of course, Stephen, you know what he did? He didn't cry for vengeance. He said, Lord, don't lay it to their charge. His vengeance was getting souls saved, and that's what happened. Paul took up his anointing, his mantle, and he became the greatest apostle in the church. And so his vengeance was souls coming into the kingdom. Okay, Psalm 37:7 says, Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. So we're not going to fret at Bill Gates and Charles Schwab and all these elite people, Clinton and everybody else. Wicked devices. We all have devices anymore, don't we? Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself anywise to do evil. For yet a little while, can you wait a little while? The wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. Man, that's a good promise. Jesus said in Matthew 5, the meek shall inherit the earth. Psalm 37:11. But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. The wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. So there's silence for half an hour in heaven when the day comes. Then the day comes. Revelation 6:10. Remember, this is what they were crying. They cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long? How long?" There's a time space. How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? I'm reminded of the parable that Jesus gave, that men should pray without ceasing. He said there was this widow that prayed all the time to a judge in the city, "Avenge me of my enemies." And he wouldn't do it for a long time. And finally he said, "I just can't stand this woman bothering me anymore." And he avenged her. He says, and then Jesus said, "How much more shall how do you say, my heavenly Father, your heavenly Father, avenge those who keep praying," or something like that. Or answer their prayers because they just keep praying and praying. So, eventually God will answer. "And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season." That's how long? A little season. "Until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled." So when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And if that cross-reference in Psalms bears light on this, then it has to do with the coming judgment and prayers getting answered, which, by the way, that is actually, we see prayers mentioned right here in the next couple of verses. "And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets." So he sees these seven angels stand before God, and each one was given a trumpet, and they are prepared to sound. "And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer." So before things get hurled to the earth and judgment falls on the earth, look at this. Another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. You know what an altar is for. By the way, this is the real altar that the earthly altar was a type of or a shadow of. So here, there's a real altar in heaven before the throne. And so this angel stood at the altar having a golden censer. Now, you know what a censer is? It's a little container. "And there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints." There's the prayers of the saints. "How long wilt thou not avenge our blood?" That he should offer it, this incense, along with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which is before the throne. Now, isn't it interesting how he describes prayers? It's something that an angel can take and offer it on the altar in heaven. It's a substance of some kind. It has a form, probably a form of a cloud or incense or smoke. "And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand." But again, I believe that's literal. If you were up in heaven, you would literally see prayers going up with the smoke of the incense. You could see prayers going up to God, and it's an odor to God. Prayer like incense. Psalm 141 verse 2 says, "Let my prayer be set forth before thee as incense, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice." That would make sense, an altar, lifting up. And then Luke 1:10 and 11 has an interesting reference about praying and incense. And the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. You know the story. Zacharias is inside, doesn't come out for too long. Finally comes out, you can't speak. But the whole multitude is outside praying outside, and it's at the time when they're offering smoke, incense. "And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Another reference about odors or incense, same Greek word, Revelation 5:8, just before he begins opening the seals. Again, before opening the seals. And before they blow the trumpets is what we're going to see here in chapter 8. But 5:8, when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. So again, we can see that the opening of the seals has to do with, first, prayers being offered. I thought this was interesting in Numbers, where there's a case where incense is offered to stop judgment. It's reversed. Because in Revelation, incense is offered to begin judgment. But here in Numbers, the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Get you up from among this congregation, that I may consume them as in a moment. And they fell upon their faces, Moses and Aaron. God was so angry at the nation of Israel, his own people. He said, Get out of my way so I can kill them all. What's the word? Like, horrified, I guess you could say. Because God is about to kill everybody. Can you imagine the holy awe that they had? And Moses tells Aaron, Quick, get up, put some incense. Right? And so Aaron, that's what he did. Aaron took, as Moses commanded, and ran into the midst of the congregation, and behold, the plague was begun among the people. And he put on incense, and it made an atonement for the people. So verse 46, which I somehow skipped here, didn't get it in here. Moses tells Aaron to put incense on, go among the people and make an atonement. That's what he did. So incense stopped God. So a voice of the Lord that has to do with judgment. Isaiah 66:5. Hear the word of the Lord, ye that tremble at his word. Your brethren that hated you, that cast you out for my name's sake, said, Let the Lord be glorified. But he shall appear to your joy, and they shall be ashamed. Interesting. A voice of noise from the city, a voice from the temple, a voice of the Lord, Jehovah, that rendereth recompense to his enemies. Voice, rendering recompense. And then it says this, which I thought fit the context of Revelation. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Right in the middle of God recompensing to his people. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. And that takes you to Revelation 12 about a woman, Israel, delivering a man-child, Christ. Okay. Rejoice ye with Jerusalem, and be glad with her, all ye that love her. Rejoice for joy with her, all ye that mourn for her. For thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then shall ye suck, ye shall be borne upon her sides, and be dandled upon her knees, as one whom his mother comforteth. That's recompense, coming back to Jerusalem. So will I comfort you, and ye shall be comforted in Jerusalem. And when ye see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like an herb. And the hand of the Lord shall be known toward his servants, and his indignation toward his enemies. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. Revelation is not very uplifting to me, but he did say rejoice when this happens, right? Because the enemy will overcome first, or so it will appear. And they will destroy Jerusalem, basically. But then God will avenge his enemies with fire and sword, and plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. And you keep reading that chapter, you can tell it's Armageddon, because he talks about all nations being brought there. Okay, Revelation 8:6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So all 7 there are prepared. So the first angel sounded. I'm just going to cover 4 angels, 4 trumpets this morning. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail, What do you mean, followed? I don't know. He sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. Hail, that's usually cold, right? Like hailstones, ice. There followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Okay? Reminds me of back in the beginning of the nation of Israel. So this is the end here in Revelation. But at the beginning, when they first became large enough that they were a threat to their enemies, Pharaoh tried to take them out, and then God had to supernaturally deliver them. And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven. Think about that. Again, in response to a man. God sends judgment. And the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along upon the ground. Doesn't mention blood here, but there is thunder and hail and fire. And the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt. See, in the Revelation, it's just a third of the trees, but all grass is burned up. All the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. In Revelation, it's just the trees and the grass. Both man and beast, and the hail smote every herb of the field and brake every tree of the field. Now, I suspect if you're outside when the trees get burned up, now can you picture that though? A third of the trees. Does that mean a third of all the earth? If it does, that's a lot of trees. And so what are we looking at? Forest fires? And they're just completely burned up because this fire just comes raining out of heaven along with the hail. And it just burns up a third of the trees. So I guess a lot of sawmills will go out of business. And won't be building as much. Don't have enough lumber anymore. A third of the trees are gone. So tree huggers will be sad. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. See, hail is frost, is cold. So it destroys the vines and the sycamore trees. He gave up their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. And that's the way David describes what happened in Egypt. It's both cold and hot. It destroyed the trees with frost, but it also destroyed the flocks with thunderbolts, and it was hot. But in Revelation, it doesn't mention frost, but it does mention hail, which that would indicate cold ice chunks flying out of heaven. And another place in Revelation chapter 16, it mentions how heavy these hailstones are. I think it was like a talent, 70 pounds or so. Psalms 11:5 says, "The Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked and him that loveth violence, his soul hateth." Violence, Hamas. A Hebrew word sounds like Hamas. Upon the wicked he shall rain snares. Fire. You ever seen fire rain out of heaven? And brimstone. And an horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup. So the Palestinians, the left, Hamas and his people, his ilk, they destroy God's people, but then God recompenses them with fire and brimstone. So that's the first angel. The first trumpet. A third of the trees, all green grass burned up. So there's a lot of fire on the earth. This is nature being affected at this point. And then the second angel sounded, and as it were, in other words, as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Again, it's the third part. A lot of third parts in these four trumpets. So, the first angel, what happened? Third part of the trees and all green grass. And then the second angel, a great mountain burning with fire, was cast into the sea. That reminds me, what did Jesus say? You can speak to the mountain and tell it to be removed and be cast into the sea. Well, I guess these prayers are getting answered. You pray to God, and all of a sudden the mountain gets set on fire, and it's hurled into the sea. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to imagine that. Have you ever stood before a big mountain? It just looms way up, huge in front of you. But then picture that mountain all on fire and be thrown into the sea. I suspect actually it's not a mountain from the earth, it's a mountain from the heavens, hurling out of the sky and landing into the sea, the ocean. And the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. So now fishermen are out of work. Well, I guess they're dead too, probably, because the third part of the ships were destroyed. There again. Supply chain issues going on now. But that's the least of the concerns right now. But this is getting very cataclysmic. This is getting very destructive, and it's ramping up tremendously here. This is probably under the fifth seal, or in response to the fifth seal, heading towards the sixth seal. Third of the creatures all died. And, of course, it's all bloody, you know. And third part of the ships were destroyed. And, of course, people who were in the ships. So there's men dying as well, no doubt. Verse 10. So now it's the third angel. The third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. So the people inland were like, man, I'm glad it didn't hurt my water supply. Just glad it's out there in the ocean. But then, a few days later, or whenever, maybe right after, a star falls into the rivers. So the fresh water is affected here. Burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water. What does he call this? A star from heaven. Aster is the Greek word, I believe, something like that. So we get our word asteroid from. So this asteroid comes hurling out of the skies, and it falls on the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood. It was bitter. Many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Let's see what else we have. So, okay. Well, let's go to the fourth angel. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten. Again, the third part. And the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Would you want to be here? Crazy amount. But this is nothing compared to what's coming. And then all of a sudden, there's only daylight for a third part of the day. And night. Can't see the stars for a third part of the night. So, well, let's read Luke 21:25. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. People are just perplexed. Can't figure it out. This is just crazy. It just blows their minds. The sea and the waves roaring. Don't you think the sea and the waves would be roaring if a big mountain fell into the ocean? You realize if that happened, you'd have tsunamis, like a huge wave being formed, and probably have hurricanes. And I think, like one guy, I just discovered this morning. He said he had a dream of this happening. This huge asteroid hitting the earth, coming out of the heavens. And when he had the dream, I'm just throwing this out. That's another one of those things, well, okay, I'll consider it, but we'll see, right? That's the way I do with prophecies and dreams. I'll consider it, but we'll see. Tom Horn, if you want to look him up, I typed in wormwood this morning. I didn't think there'd much show up that you'd have any credibility, but he has an interesting dream where he saw this huge asteroid coming out of heaven, or it's on its way, actually. NASA is tracking an asteroid right now. I think it's called Apatho or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it's pronounced. And he heard that name in his dream, Apatho, when he woke up. And it originally was scheduled to hit the Earth in 2029, and he thinks it still is, and NASA's just covering up, but they're saying it's not supposed to hit now. So that's something we're going to watch, right? But the way I understand is that it makes a revolution or a cycle, and every time it could come close to the Earth. So it passes by the Earth, and in 2029, they're saying it could take out some satellites. That's how close it will hit the Earth. So I didn't know about this. I just saw it this morning. But based on that dream, he looks at this chapter 8 different than what he used to. He says he thinks that this asteroid is, okay, the 4 angels sounding the 4 trumpets is all because of that asteroid. The first angel, a third part of the trees were destroyed, and all green grass is burned up. He thinks that is the after debris. As the asteroid is coming close, there's debris and stuff happening ahead of the asteroid that is causing the trees to get burned up and the green grass burning up. And then the mountain falling into the ocean, he thinks that this asteroid could be a binary asteroid, or it's one big asteroid and then it breaks apart, and one part drops in the ocean and the other part drops in the rivers. Inland. And then, so then the 4th angel, what was the 4th angel? Oh, the sun is darkened. Okay? So then, because it hits the ocean, there's a tremendous waves and hurricanes and things happening, and blots out a third of the sun and the moon and the stars. But they're all directly related to this asteroid. So, one of the reasons I'm sharing it with you is, okay, it makes it more real. Like this could actually be a literal, like it's just scientific, real meteor or an asteroid up there in the heavens, in the skies, that could hit the Earth at some point. Now, am I saying by 2029 we're in the middle of the tribulation? It's one of those things. We'll see what happens. Because if it does, if 2029 is when that happens, and that is wormwood, then that would put us right in the 5th seal, 6th seal area, middle of the tribulation. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I don't know if he's right or not. Okay, so there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity of sea and the waves roaring. That's what Jesus said. So here's the last verse of chapter 8. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. So 3 woes are coming yet. 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpet, which are in chapter 9 and 11. And I think that is as far as we're going this morning. It's a little shorter, but I didn't want to go too much into chapter 9 because there's a lot in there as well.